Alright, guys. Here I am. Just at the beginning of my third month of my 365 days of going live with tarot energy check-ins. Anyway. Believe it or not, like, my entire life, like, the main reason I'm here on Earth is simply... Okay, so, I want you to know that there's a price to pay for freedom. So my spirit is a free spirit. I have officially achieved free spirit status. Like, I passed all my tests, and I am a free spirit. I was always going to pass them anyway, but, I've passed all my tests in life already, okay? I had very intense, hardcore tests to pass my first, I want to say until I was like 36, it lightened up, at 26, it started lightening up, and, basically, I was less likely to die, right? But, the first 26 years of my life, I had literally a test every moment, and, my life was on the line, 24/7, okay? And it was very important that I operated in a way that I chose life, okay? And, my spirit was already free, but my spirit remained free. So the reason I'm even alive, the reason I chose to come into an earthly body, was to keep my free spirit. Because you have to, in order to be a free spirit, there's, of course, there's, the universe is big, but Earth is a big place to come, to achieve freedom of spirit. And it's one of the easier places to come when your free spirit due needs to be paid. You come to Earth, and you do work on Earth that, you get another free spirit. I'll have another free spirit for another 1,000 years probably. And I'll have to come back in the year 3000 and, be of service, okay, to humanity again. I'm with humanity until the end of humanity. My spirit, because of stuff that I did, I tethered myself to humanity for the rest of humanity, for eternity. So, I'm just saying, I don't recommend it, okay? If you can leave being a human with no dues left to pay to humanity, I recommend doing that, okay? And just, we're responsible for our creations, and the impact that our creations have, depending on how greatly we impacted humanity, the greater the impact we have on humanity, the more we are tethered to it, okay? So, it's just something to keep in mind, all right? Yes, we all want to feel important. We all want to feel like, okay, we need that. That's a human need, is to feel witnessed and to feel like we're important, to feel like we make an impact in the world, okay? That's a basic human need, okay? But I'm just saying that don't run away with it, okay? Because I'm an example of someone who I put too much weight on it, and now I'm just irrevocably tied to humanity, okay? And at this point, it's just a burden, okay? Being alive as a human is a burden. I'm not saying that I have learned to love life, and I choose to live my life one day at a time, because I'm in acceptance and I practice radical self-love, but it doesn't feel like, yes, I get the chemical hit from feeling like I'm important and making an impact, but I realize now that that doesn't make me important. All that makes me is just more tethered to humanity and the destiny of humanity across time, okay? Which is a burden, and, yes, as a human, having success and impact and having that wide influence, yes, it feels good, but that feeling is a lie, okay? Or it's not that it's a lie, it's just that that feeling is, it's very low on the totem pole of mattering, okay? the way it mainly matters is it just tethers you to humanity, okay? And then you become responsible for humanity as a whole. All right, that's, so I'm just saying that, and there's really, at this point, there's nothing noble about being tethered to humanity, because humanity is, as someone I've, as another spiritual person online, who I'm, I don't know personally, but Teal Swan, I interact with her content quite a bit. I have. And, as she says, I consider her a philosopher, all right? I mean, she's been called a cult leader, and people are afraid to associate with her, which is, God, Teal Swan is clearly learning the hard way about, why being tethered to humanity is not really something to feel proud of at this point. Although, she is tethered. But anyway, I'm not going to get too deep into her, because yes, Teal Swan I consider her a best friend, but, because I'm not going to go into that, but I also consider her a philosopher. But the reason that she comes off as a cult leader is just because she is from Utah, okay? And Utah is like the cult state, okay? You can't be from Utah and not like, because Utah is like runs itself like a cult, okay? And so if you grew up in Utah, then you have a cult mentality, okay? So, and I just, Teal Swan, if you hear this message, I would brand yourself as a philosopher, okay? Because we need you, okay? And I would just brand yourself as a philosopher, okay? Because philosophy is impersonal enough that it will decharge your media and your impact, okay? If you classify yourself as a philosopher, okay, because philosophy is, it's impersonal, and it will help to remove you as a person from your content, okay? So anyway, but as she says, the human race is essentially a cancer cell, okay? And so, it doesn't have to be this way, okay? We can work together to, cure, the cancer cell that we are, okay? So anyway, let's do the energy check, and that was a long one. Need to do my prayer. All right. I invited my higher self to be here with me for the next 24 hours. Thank you for being here with me, higher self. Now is the time for me to put in my special request with the Most High. Okay. Thank you, Most High, for hearing our prayers, and thank you for redirecting us where we need redirecting. I invite in my ancestors to be here with me for the next 24 hours. Thank you, ancestors, for being here with me. Repeat after me. I'm doing the celebration, and you're doing the repetition of the celebration, okay? I invited my higher self to be here with me for the next 24 hours. Thank you, higher self, for being here with me for the next 24 hours. I invited my ancestors to be here with me for the next 24 hours. Thank you, ancestors, for being here with me for the next 24 hours. I invited my guardian angels to be here with me for the next 24 hours. Thank you, guardian angels, for being here with me for the next 24 hours. Thank you, guardian angels, for keeping me safe, healthy, and sane for the next 24 hours. All right, amen. Amen, omen. You men, I men. Yeah, this was a wannabe utopia, Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, currently known as X, soon to be known as Nullset. Okay, I'm spearheading we need to keep changing the name of this this website or whatever, social media platform, because it's just, we got to keep changing the name of it, and now it's null set, okay? Let's get ready for that rebranding campaign. Yeah. I can play with language so much harder than you, Elon Musk. I know. I'm so much better at playing with words and symbols than you are. All right. So, I'm sure you're, I'm just saying. It's a fact. But I appreciate your effort. I appreciate your effort to be a good person too, I guess. But anyway, Elon Musk, I consider you a friend now. All right. I wasn't sure about you for a long time, but I consider you a friend now. So you're very lucky. You're very lucky that I decided to be your friend, all right? Because I'm not friends with people because I want things from them, okay? I'm friends with people because they're, either because they need my friendship, okay? Or because, I can trust them, okay? You have earned my trust more so now, but I'm still wary. I don't have blind trust regarding you. There are some people I trust blindly, okay? But, I do have some friends on that level, but Elon Musk, you're not on that level yet, okay? I don't trust you blindly. But I'm at least trying. I'm attempting trust here. Anyway, okay. So let's do this energy check-in. Let me light the candle. I have the scenty candles. This is Tahitian vanilla. Don't you wish you were here with me? I know. All right, let's put the bat signal on. All right, let's make sure we got that bat signal on. All right, so nobody's messing with me anymore. Now that they know that, I picked Batman for my team. Way back when, before I was even kindergarten, I was like, yo, Batman is on my team. I had personal meetings with Batman, in which we staged photos, in which, yeah, look at me, I'm so strong, but then I got Batman behind me. I was already staging the photo before kindergarten for, the penultimate impact. Yeah, it's like, challenge me to a fight? All right, yeah, game on. And then, just Batman just shows up to fight for me, okay? So, yeah. No one's doubting me anymore. All right. Okay, so let's do the energy check-in. All right, so what? Okay. Ugh. I'm cool with Joker too. I explained this in another live. I'm not gonna explain it again. But Joker knows not to step. Because Joker's actually my brother. Alright? And I might be his clone, or I don't know. Actually, no, I don't think so, but Joker is my brother, but I don't know. Anyway, there's my grandfather Jerry, alright, who's here with me now. He's doing this reading with me too. I don't know. Anyway, I was talking about this, but so I come from essentially no one knows anything, okay? We don't know anything, all right? I mean, I grew up around a lot of classified, government, team government, good guy, allies, level classified peoples, because there was a lot of, that's just my, that's my, ride or die kind of family. Most of them I'm related to, and some of them it's just, they are family to people I'm related to, so badass, okay? It's a long lineage of badass, okay? To the degree that, I don't know anything. What? Okay, so it's, to that level, okay? So like, gaslighting is like the only legal way for me to even talk about any of it or to process it. I have to, it's like communal, life or death. Okay, we must gaslight because that's the level of badass, okay? And, I was a victim. I played the victim role for a very long time, and I played it very well. I mean, here's the thing is like, I was a victim of gaslighting, okay? So I wasn't even playing it, all right? I wasn't playing the victim role. It's like, I was the victim of gaslighting, so I was just recovering from it. I was healing from it and recovering from it, since the day I was born. I was like, okay, well, my life is going to be entirely about healing and overcoming gaslighting because, like being gaslit about everything, essentially, if you're not strong mentally, you're gonna break, all right? You're gonna break. You're gonna be broken, okay? So, I mean, and then, it's... And anyway, so the way that... and I was, I was highly sensitive, and that was kind of the face that I showed to the world, all right? And it was authentic, it wasn't like I was pretending to be a victim. I didn't want to be a victim. It's like, no, I actually had to face, the gaslighting and, not break, okay? So, I would cry, I was emotional, I dropped out of things, I was a quitter, I was a leaver, I was an abandoner, I was labeled a lot of things that it's like, okay, no, not, showing a lot of weaknesses. Like I had a high IQ, but in math, why did I get D's? And I couldn't be controlled and manipulated into, and that was part of the design. Like the people I grew up around knew, like, okay, you're either gonna just need to be like, you're gonna need to be unbreakable, or you're gonna break, because that was the field environment, all right? Overcoming fear. That was the environment. So. They were just, so, and that was I realize now part of their genius, was that you never, ever, ever take anything too seriously. If you get stressed out, like if you're someone who needs to get stressed out, you do so over, nothing. You get, highly outraged over, stupid things. I developed severe hypochondria and claustrophobia, so it's I'm having a total panic attack, meltdown, I'm making a really big deal out of the fact that I'm dying of cancer, but I don't have cancer. I'm healthy. I'm, a 5-year-old, and there's no cancer anywhere on my body, but I'm freaking the F out and making a big deal about the fact that I have cancer, but I don't, okay? So this is when in order to not break, okay, you need to, it's that energy needs to go somewhere, okay? The stress and the effects of gas, because let's face it, so what are the effects of gaslighting on people? It's insanity. It's total insanity. It's suicide. It's psychological break. Okay? And so I feigned that through let's say hypochondria. Okay? So and all that really took was a doctor's visit and being no, you're obnoxiously healthy. Someone give her a real injury so she knows what this is like. That's kind of how I dealt with that energy. I never put it into something real, okay? I never ever put that kind of energy into anything that was real, okay? I put that into a phobia. I put that into, I don't know, a manic vision, or, a demonic entity, which isn't even real, okay? So that's how you deal with that energy. That's how you null it out. That's how you null set, okay? Like, basically the emotions, the fear, the terror, the, depression, whatever, that would cause you to have a psychological break, okay? The way you null set those emotions is by just putting them into things that aren't true, okay? Or that aren't even real. Like, spiritual warfare. Yeah, I'm going to put, okay, there's a demon. Okay, well, I don't see a demon. This is fake. This is a fake, just belief, either propagated by people who are mentally, insane and delusional. So, okay, yeah, let's fight this demon, okay? Or, oh my God, I'm dying of cancer. I know it. Or it's like, I'm having a heart attack right now. Like, I remember in kindergarten, I used to come over to school and I'd be like, I know I'm dying of a heart attack. And it's like, I wasn't dying of a heart attack, but I'm freaking out about it. I'm crying about it. I'm so sad my life is over and I want to keep living. But it's none of it's real, okay? But, so it's a way to, like, it's a little trick, okay? But that's pretty high level, all right? That's pretty high level, all right? It's misdirection. You misdirect the people around you. And then, anyway, and then you run away, okay? You run away. And then you live your life and then everyone thinks you're a failure. I don't brush my hair enough, so, I run into, one of my, someone I grew up with who I'm not related to, but who's family to us, who's, one of these people, and, I see them on the street, they're like, you look terrible, and I do, maybe I'm wearing, like, a ripped t-shirt, or, I'm wearing, like, ripped jeans, and, I haven't brushed my hair in 3 weeks, and, I'm, like, a 25-year-old who's living in Brooklyn now, and, like, I'm an alcoholic, and I worked at a store that sells vibrators, or I'm just one of those. I'm a free intern. I'm just a pawn, and while people are using me, and so I just have this. And meanwhile, I'm like coming. I'm a total. I'm just. Clearly, I'm just one of those sad girls who broke, and that's how I live my life. But then it's like kind of weird because I just, because I'm still very high functioning. So anyway, I'm just telling you, I'm trying to give you a lesson so that you can understand the level of gaslighting I am capable of. Okay. And, it's not something I want to use, but I don't, I'd rather have open communication and honesty, but at this point, I'm sadistic, okay? I didn't really used to be that way, but at this point, it's just pure sadism that, I realize, but that's what a lot of people need. They need some sadism, okay? Because we're at that point where while I'm playing the role of the Antichrist, we're at that point where people are being tested. And by the way, the Antichrist is the greatest test. I'm sorry I misled you in the Bible. I mean, the Bible is just is just a mind F, and it was meant to be that way, okay? Because this is part of why humanity is a cancer cell, because human beings, this is how the architecture of our species and our civilization evolved, is just to F with people, okay? Mainly because of death, okay? It's all this, we have to die, right, as human beings, or unless, the middle school girl initiates achieve eternal life for us, okay? Which I guess they're still working on middle school girl initiates. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for bringing us eternal life. We can't wait for that. All right. One of your children is gonna write the equivalent of Fruitlands about whatever the hell your acronym is. All right. And part of the reason, you're the middle school girl initiates is so that you have a chance to understand what it is that you've done, okay, through your utopia, okay, because that's why you're middle school girl initiates, okay? A lesson coming. All right, but the theme of today is we are overcoming fear, all right? We are overcoming fear. God, I wanted to do this fast because I'm really feeling, I just kind of want to get in the zone and listen to music. That's the kind of mood I'm in. But I'm doing this reading in order to just show up for myself and build integrity. All right, so overcoming fear, the unknown can be frightening, and it's easy for those feelings to intensify in the darkness or when we feel exhausted. Make sure all of your needs are met and you are well rested. It takes patience, consistency, and validation to rewire the old paths of your thoughts. Perhaps a past experience is triggering the current emotions. So acknowledge the reasons you feel this way. Note the way you speak to yourself. You're strong and powerful, and you can overcome anything, but also remember to be gentle and patient with who you are. Move slowly at your own pace and see yourself shining in the bright, warm light of this glowing candle. I can manage my feelings. Use this card when you need to face your fears or anxiety. Create a safe space in your mind by imagining lighting a candle. The candle represents your bravery, and the prickly branches on this card are your fears and anxiety. Look at the card again and envision the light shining brighter and stronger until it spills over the edges of the card and out in reality. Feel the burden dissolve and notice how light this new feeling of love and trust becomes. So that's self-explanatory. I have, my biggest fear is guilt. I fear feeling guilt. But I've kind of I fully accepted guilty, I'm guilty. I'm guilty as charged, I'm cool with it. I've accepted consequences. So guilt is, oh God. So guilt is a bit of a virtual theory. So what I mean by virtual theory is that guilt is not real. It's guilt is economics. Okay, so economics is a system that, yes, is mathematically designed, but it's not based on physics. Okay, it's based on statistics, I guess, but statistics are economics itself. It's not you can't base economics off of a real gravity or I don't know, E equals MC squared or whatever. You can't economics is it's an equation, but it's not in the Enlightenment sense, it's not a real equation, okay? In the sense of the Enlightenment, okay? And so guilt is a tool of, as my dad always said to me growing up, economics is a dismal science. My dad had a lot of contempt, even though he was in finance, he had a lot of contempt for finance, and, he was right. He was 100% right, and that's why he was valuable, is because he had great historical knowledge and understanding of economics as a dismal science, okay? But, so, here we go, that's part of it. So, and basically what he wanted me to take away from him is that he is not, human beings are just not, nothing in a human, absolutely nothing in human life, okay, is worth, giving your power away to that thing, okay, by, hating it. Nothing is that serious, okay, in human life, aside from, he had a very, weird, outrageous bark, but, in terms of his bite, he treated my brother and I with love, even though, the gaslighting was real, y'all, and and the gaslighting was a joke, okay, and that's like gaslighting times gaslighting, all right, and it was real, but, you know, when we would walk down the street, he'd say, oh, let me walk on the outside of the sidewalk, so in case a car comes over the sidewalk, then I'll die and you'll be saved, because ultimately you're my child, and I couldn't live with myself if I wasn't doing everything to protect you. You know, he sort of, even though he does still have an outrageous perspective, and, and I guess, I am, what I gleaned from his example was that, he would be torturing you, but you would be laughing. Okay, so he's someone who really is this person going to kill me? Well, I'm going to die laughing then, or is this person going, this person is breaking my soul and breaking me as a human being, but I'm laughing hysterically. Okay, that's the type of person my dad is. Okay, and so I have gleaned some of that from him, mainly as a survival instinct. I was this very sensitive, girl, and, I let him know, from early on, he's mean. I was not okay with him. and I was crying, but, we were, we'd be playing checkers, or we'd be playing gin rummy, or go fish, because he would take that time. He would take that time to, okay, let's play a card game, let's play checkers. And I'd be laughing so hard, okay, that I was having fun, So it's like, where I get that sort of, and after years in therapy and a lot of work in, Al-Anon and adult children of alcoholics, I finally just let go of the resentment I had against my dad. And, that's the biggest revenge you can take, because now he has no power over me anymore. And I can just, he can dish it out, and, and he still makes us laugh. He's still hilarious, and I can steal his material, because his line of the family is very firmly Luddite. Okay, going back to George Gordon Lord Byron, who I may or may legend has it that I'm related to George Gordon Lord Byron. Okay, he's part of that family line. And we all know he was a famous Luddite. So we are Luddites going way back, okay? On my dad's mother's side of the family, we are the template for being a Luddite, okay? So I was conditioned very much to be a Luddite, so I'm a Luddite for life no matter what. Because I was stamped by, especially by my father. But now since I've forgiven myself, because basically what it was about was, we had a few family therapy sessions, which, I stormed out of and never came back, because, oh God, Dad had already set it all up so that this was all my fault. And really he was just expressing how he felt, the therapist was on his side. She was like, oh, you're acting out, because my dad said I was a disappointment to him in family therapy, and the therapist was totally on his side, and I got mad, I got angry, and I stormed out. I never went back to family therapy, not once, all right? And that actually earned my dad's respect, because I was my dad was oh, well, I was the right one there, and then I was well, who's putting the bill? And he's oh my God, you're right. I'm putting the bill. So no wonder I was the right one. So I'm just saying, I earned his respect by walking out of family therapy and pointing out to him that the reason the therapist was on his side is because he was footing the bill. Okay, and that earned his respect, because so. And now I can just be as brutally mean to my dad as I want, because and not feel bad about it, because that's what he does, and he doesn't feel bad about it. Are you joking me? It was just a joke. He didn't mean it. So, and now it can just be funny, and, and I just know that as his daughter, and it's also, what I learned from my dad too is that, like, life is impersonal. Like, even who your parents are is impersonal. Like, he just happened to be my father, and, I'm lucky enough that, I got to stargaze in the British Virgin Islands a lot, and in Argentina, just to ponder the stars, with my dad and my brother, and, that's it. Wasn't that a great moment that we had? It doesn't, there doesn't need to be more meaning than this, okay? In this just circumstantial, circumstantially, I was born as, his daughter, and it's like we have nothing in common except that, he's my father, and he was a good father, so he still hasn't abandoned me, and he was a good father in that sense. And, one of the greatest gifts that the father can give, his children or whatever, his mentors, his community, is to live his life as the human being he is, but also to kill him off as the father figure, okay? And, that was from the get-go, from, like, the time we were conscious, to me and my brother, he's like, I don't like kids, I'm not interested in kids, I don't want to have kids. I think kids are annoying. I love you because you're my kids, and I'll take you to the park and we'll do stuff and we'll have fun sometimes. But I'm not interested in, like, he very much just said the whole father thing. I'm not interested in that. Like, I don't want to be seen as a father figure. I had a very effed up childhood, and the world is effed up, and like this whole fatherhood sort of role. He's like, that's not who I am, I'm not playing it, deal. And, and so what that did is it killed off his influence to a certain degree. Like, it really prohibited his ability to maintain influence and control over us. It essentially was, he was still there, we had to deal with him, but, he had absconded the father role. So, I think for me and my brother, of course that has negative sides to it, but also, he was just a good human being. So, and my father held his friends much higher than his family, because he grew up with a lot of crazy people in his family. I'm not going to go into that. But they're also all badasses. But my grandmother's memorial service, like, it was literally a silence competition. Okay. Like, if you you don't even know what silence is, okay, until you've spent some time with my dad and his brothers, and they all hate each other, okay. And if any of the brothers, there's one sister, there's 5 brothers. The sister is like, the advocate of the family. She's like the alliance. She's like what is that called? She's the ambassador of the family. Like, everyone talks to the sister, and except for one of my uncles, my godfather, he went totally off grid. I won't talk. If you're listening now, I miss you, Matt. Come back into my life. He was really cool. He would come for Thanksgiving with us, and we'd like. So Matt is he's a mechanical genius. He like built plane engines for the military or something, but total free spirit. He could do wheelies on a motorcycle. He was a great horse rider. He could have been a jockey. Could have been a vet. He was great with animals. Just very gentle. Matt. I love Matt. My Uncle Matt. Who's totally off grid now. Totally off grid, Matt. Just come say hi to your goddaughter. I miss you, Matt. But I remember Matt would come over Thanksgiving, and we would we'd go on adventures together, because so everyone, well, maybe not my dad, because my dad's my dad's father was literally a genius. I've talked about him. All right, we have 4 of Wands here, so just know that your twin flame is you're either already united with your twin flame, or you're uniting with your twin flame. But so Jerry, who's here with us, so he was a literal genius. Okay, I've described him on here before. But he's a very impressive person. Okay, who literally was a Ukrainian immigrant born in 1909. His mother in Wilmington, Delaware, and his mother was divorced, okay? And he was like, his mother was a Christian Scientist, but they were of Jewish origin, okay? And so, like, he was the child of, like, a Jewish immigrant, all right, and a child of divorce, okay, in, like, the 19-teens, okay? And, did not come from money, did not have an inheritance, you know, and he ended up retiring in the British Virgin Islands, okay, early. So, and we still have that family house, and I'm just saying, like, he is someone who was a true genius, okay? Like, he worked his way up from nothing. He was a medical doctor, you know, he worked his way into being a medical doctor, you know, not, I think he probably went to the University of Delaware, and he went to the University of Arkansas Medical School, like, he is not from, you know, he is not from the elite, okay? But he made his way to the elite. Why? Because of how he was a genius, and he was, so I think, anyway, he has a little bit of tragedy to his story, but, you know, if there's one thing that, no matter how bad off you are, ain't nobody in my family a victim. Nobody is a victim. If you're a victim, you're not like if you're a victim, like, you're like my grandmother. So my grandmother, I enjoyed her presence as a little child, but, she was a little bit evil, okay? She's the one who was related to, you know, legendarily related to, George Gordon, Lord Byron, who would be, you know, who would be considered exiled and a black sheep of the family, coming from that line of, you know, that line of British snobbery, you know, and she grew up in Argentina, and she grew up as the child of an exile. Her father was exiled from, you know, Scotland and the UK, because he was embarrassing the family with his drinking and gambling, so they sent him to Argentina, okay? And where he became a born-again Christian and married another Argentine and, you know, had 3 children. So she grew up, you know, anyway, she enlisted in the Royal Nurse Force because she was a British citizen when she was 18, when World War II broke out, and was stationed in London, where my grandfather was stationed as a psychiatrist. They're in the same hospital, and anyway, they ended up getting married, and they gave birth to my dad, and there's, you know, and then the next son in line, and, you know, I think that Jerry, my grandfather, I mean, he was such a genius, and the army turned him into a psychiatrist, so he was probably classified intelligence. I don't know, though. We know nothing, okay? He was just a psychiatrist, but he was also a psychiatrist, but, I mean, I wish I had met the man. But anyway, I think he ended up being a human sacrifice, because my grandmother probably sacrificed him, okay? Because, like, that's the sort of, like, British evil that I come from in that line. Like, there's, like, no one does evil like the British people. Like, think of, like, the famous, like, evil British people. Like, they're so effed up, and they don't give a rat, they don't give a F how effed up they are. They're just like, yeah, like, what do you need your exploration funded? Okay, you know, like, let's sign some contracts and, like, and have, like, a demonic, you know, bacchanalia party. Like, the British evil people, like, the ancient evil, like, noble British people are, you know, they're evil people, okay? They're not ashamed of it, and they're not, like, it's not like the United States where people pretend like they're, you know, where people pretend like, oh, they have these high ideals, and that means we're, like, noble men. No, in Britain, it's like, it's, the nobility in Britain is so, is just what it is. It's just hierarchy, okay? It's not pretending to be enlightened. It's not pretend. It's just like this is just hierarchy. All right, it's black and white. You're either in the hierarchy or you're not in the hierarchy, and you're either just an evil person, right, or you're stupid. No, I mean that's sort of the that's from this that line of ancient British evil nobility that I come from. On that side, like we need a human sacrifice. Okay, we're gonna have it be the low class genius who is married to one of our there's no it's just deal with it. Okay, there's no empathy, there's no sympathy, there's just evil. All right, it's like you need to prove yourself, you need to prove how evil you are. Okay, and that's all. Like who has more lassitude? Okay, who is like who is Dorian Gray? All right. Like, who is more like Dorian Gray, all right? And that's the competition. That's, you want to be as much like Dorian Gray as you can possibly be, okay? And, but I think he was a sacrifice. I think he did have lung cancer, but, they took out one of his lungs. And, anyway, this weird, it's gonna be that weird, okay? Where it's like weird, or it's like that kind of British evil, nobility. So, very sadistic. Okay, so anyway, she, my grandmother, she did a lot of charity work. She was a nurse. She had an amazing, adventurous life, and she certainly lived every minute of it. But, there was very much a system of, exile and all of that going on, and sacrifice, and, get evil or get out. Sort of a mentality with her. And I think my grandfather was such a pure soul, was such a pure, lighthearted spirit, but also like a genius. Important for, actually. So anyway, he's the one who's really left the legacy for our family. Ironically, it's like with him as the sacrifice. My grandmother was, all she did was, she just stamped out nobility even more, the noble hierarchy. And, she was just sort of like she had an exciting life. She did a lot of good. People loved her, she did a lot. She was very involved in the BVI. She's one of her goddaughters in the BVI is a lawyer. I mean, she did she brought a lot of education and modern medicine, and she was celebrated by the locals, she was very much part of the community, and she was a nurse, she had that mentality, but her spirit is dead, essentially, because that's just what happens when you're if you're super marked with the evil line of yes, I'm oh God, I mean, I'm she's actually very lucky that grandfather Jerry, because Jerry is he's anyway. His spirit is here with us. He's just saying, keep going, girl. You got it. I know I'm talking a lot. But, part of this is ancestral healing. This reading. I was going to read my intentions. Yeah, my intentions for today are true love. Because a lot of people reading tarot readings are looking for true love. Openness. So it is so important to stay open. Openness, all right? So that's open to possibility, all right? Not hyper-focused on, what I want at all costs, right? No, instead just be open to all the abundance of possibility around you, right? Open communication, because we are a safe space for each other in which to be vulnerable. That's what, ultimately, part of the reason I'm doing these live readings is to be a safe space for people on Twitter, okay? Is to create space that feels safe, where it's okay to be open and honest and vulnerable. And I do that by being open, honest, and vulnerable. And Jerry is someone very much who, God, I think, they tried to erase him to a certain degree. He probably was intelligent in World War II, okay, but, he wasn't only intelligence, he was also, he was the psychiatrist. I know he was a captain stationed in London. My dad recently told me a story, he met Platoon or something. He went to Platoon in Italy to, treat one of the other captains or treat, I don't know, to, be on the on-call, psychiatrist guy to, help people, be in the emotional state they needed to be in to win World War II, okay? He was, that guy, He was all right, you're a genius, you can fix our diesel engine also, you can, and you can, you sort of be our resident healer shaman, okay? You're trained as a doctor, yes, but we made you psychiatrist, because what is a psychiatrist? A psychiatrist is, and I think Jerry understood this. He understood the healer shaman aspect of psychology. He was super into Adler. He was a very practical human being. He could fix diesel engines, okay, easily. He could make anything. He could make stuff. He understood mechanics to such a degree that, he could just make a record player from scratch or, whatever. My dad and his brothers would make pipe bombs, when they were kids, all right? And I'm sure, Jerry would have supported that mechanical type of exploration, okay, because that's probably how Jerry learned. Jerry came from, quote unquote, nothing, all right? He didn't even grow up with a father. His mother was divorced. He came from nothing, and he was of that scientific. He was a scientist who could build stuff from literally nothing, okay, and create value that way. So he was a scientist in the true sense of the term scientist. And I do think he was very mechanical and he was very practical. And he was way ahead of his time. Way ahead of his time. He would have loved the internet. That's what my dad always says, because he was into ham radio. And, with ham radio, it's you could tune into the same radio station, that he had going and, have a conversation. So it's sort of predating, my dad would do that with his dad, so there was a lot of they had a microwave and the early 1950, his dad came home with a microwave, and he was into color photography and color film, and he was just we are so lucky. My grandmother is so lucky she ended up having 6 kids with that man, because he helped to purify some of that evil that she was born into. But he was so ahead of his time. We're having an emotional wake up. People are waking up emotionally, really, for the first time. And he was he was emotionally intelligent, a mechanical genius, all this stuff. He was just so ahead of his time. I think they kind of tried to shadow bury him a little bit, because he was a big deal during his life. He was featured in the Saturday Evening Post, and, he was a little bit of a celebrity, psychiatrist, and, but there's nothing about him on the internet anywhere. But I think he's probably, CIA agents have read my file, and they're like, oh shit, we didn't realize he was your grandfather. Okay, well, okay, that's why I'm the boss now, okay? Jerry has, designed it that way. And I like Jerry. He's got a very good attitude, very good sense of humor. He's definitely haunting all of the frequencies that we now communicate on technologically, and he's having fun with it, all right? All right, your beliefs, what you value, your resources, okay? Because Jerry, my grandmother was very judgmental. She was there was the clearly labeled black sheep of her children who had been exiled, who I've gotten back in communication with. He like travels the world like in like boats that he makes like that is sunk, and he's really cool. He's in Australia now. He just goes into the bush for like 6 months and just lives in the bush in Australia. I think that history will remember him well. He was definitely, he's an outlaw for sure, but he's a genius. He was the smartest of them all. He is genius level, all right? Like, it's very, mechanical genius, like Elon Musk. You got some competition, but the difference is that, like, went rogue, all right? There's a lot of, like, that's why I think Jerry was probably classified, government classified, and like involved in like the really classified stuff, okay? Like probably like outer space exploration and definitely the ham radios, like probably like the really like mad genius classified stuff, okay? And because that's just how it's like the level of privacy, okay? Like, and just also like so when you have that kind of energy in your family, like of highly classified, so we have the second house coming up, says your beliefs, what you value, your resources, okay? So, examine your beliefs. What do you value? What are your primary resources? All right. Like with Jerry, his primary resources were literally like, the raw material of mechanics and just putting that raw material together to create machines. Okay. Like he could do that. All right. And it wasn't like, it wasn't anything, it was just like, He was truly a genius, okay? He was a master. He was a master of mechanics, okay? The science of mechanics. In the true sense of the word, okay? That, like he was like you could kind of think it like he's like a machine. He would have been a machine purist, like, all right, let me see what I have. Let me see what I can experiment with, and what discoveries can I make to create, like, what do I very much an inventor, okay, a science, but also very practical, extremely practical human being. But I'm just saying, like, so when you have someone like that who literally is that level of self-made, is that level of intelligent, is that level of capable, is just that level of like, all right, It's magic almost, if you think about it. Like, mechanical purity is magic because you're creating something from just all these separate parts and bringing them together in a way that is impressive, quote unquote. But so when you have access at the like level of, okay, this is my grandfather, this is the father. Like, when you have access to that level of impossible, for lack of a better word, like someone who like jumps over every hurdle, like someone who sees limitation and then uses that limitation to overcome the limits, like that's the type of person he was. So there's when that's like your father, and then, but also, like, you kind of have that, but then you have this, evil, British, mother, by way of Argentina, who's, also sort of at the top of her game, like, in many ways, is certainly no pushover, like, but you have that sort of dynamic where ultimately, the British nobility matters more than the maverick, genius, okay, who came from nothing. Like, there's this British classism, which is very the muse of emotions. You're welcome. I know. Here I am. I'm your muse. Suck it in. But and then in the United, it's just anyway. I think he was probably high end government classification, and probably he was called in to treat the mentally ill people. Okay, which is especially at in one of his papers that he wrote about how the mental ill it has this, people think it's supernatural, okay, and trust me, Jerry did not believe it. Jerry was a true scientist, in the true sense of the word, but and he would make the supernatural real, through the illegal frequencies he explored, okay, which I know nothing. If he even explored these frequencies, it's that type of thing. So, but it's just when you have that level of genius in your family, what happens is, and that's involved in classified government things. You're out of the matrix, okay, quote unquote. You're if that's and I don't think Jerry wasn't one, he was a psychiatrist at the end of the day. He studied how to be mentally healthy, okay? And he believed in emotions. He understood that human beings had emotions, and that this is what, he didn't see psychiatry as a science. He was a true scientist. He's psychiatry is not a science. No matter how hard it wants to be a science, it's not a science. I think he saw it more as an art, and, he understood, emotional factors are at play. I think that was the name of his paper, from, the 50s. He understood, look, we're all just, we got a lot of people who are refusing to feel their feelings, okay? And he understood, he was the psychiatrist of the DuPont company, meaning, yes, he probably treated some of the crazy DuPont, rich people, but, no, he worked for their company, meaning, he was the one evaluating the people working at DuPont, because whatever, I don't even know what DuPont does, but they have factories, and they make something where if something goes wrong, everyone's gonna die. If someone F's up their job at the DuPont factory, everyone is going to die. Okay, so who's in the factory, and maybe there's gonna be a nuclear explosion, type of thing. He was in charge of making sure that the people who were operating these systems were mentally stable enough to not kill everybody. Okay? That was his job. So, he was sort of he was on the cutting edge of the human psyche, human emotions, and the machine, and being a successful producer, okay? And or being having a successful factory, having understanding that, I was talking about, in my visions of Jerry, it's he created me probably in a government laboratory. I don't know, he probably created me. I was probably originally an experiment, and then, they tried to clone me when I was 2 to finish Jerry's project, and then, you know what I mean? But it's this is my vision, but, and then, so I lived a life where I was actually one of Jerry's children, and my dad was my brother. That's weird, I know, right? And, because I was a scientific experiment, I was one of the, I was a classified scientific experiment, but, there was sort of Jerry had 2, he had his biological family, which was just made through natural reproduction. And then, then he had his weird scientific experiment children, who were highly government classified. And, ultimately he was there to be okay, this is not mentally healthy. He was the one telling everyone, he was the one hired in the agency to be okay, guys, this is not mentally healthy. We're creating Frank, he was kind of the one who, people would go to for that type of, okay, well, how do we deal with the fact that, all right, now the scientists are psychotic because they created they created me, and I'm, clearly I need, this was a mistake, but now it's not humane to just execute me, and then, it's like, anyway, all these things. So, what Jerry did is he had me placed, frozen and then placed into my current family, and and they tried a few more scientific experiments on me just to stick it to Jerry, because Jerry probably told a lot of people no. He probably told a lot of powerful people, like, this is cruel. Like, you're not treating people right. He came up with this idea of practical humanitarianism. Like, he was someone who understood emotions, but also just, he was probably like the guy who was like, guys, like, MK Ultra is not, is wrong. Ultimately, we're creating mentally ill people when we, subject them to torture. Like, here's the data. Like, it's not science, but he was the psychiatrist data guy to, that people, that he lived the American dream. He came from nothing. He came from absolutely nothing. And because of his own, usefulness in the world, did well for himself. But, I don't think that ever meant anything to him. He was, I think he was more of like because he understood the healer shaman aspect of it. He understood that human beings are horribly out of touch with their emotions, and we treat each other so cruelly, and we do horrible things. We created me, and I'm he regrets his creation. But now, because of his humanity and the fact that, they used his genes to make me, I'm basically one of his children. So, all right, we'll just freeze you and put you in the future where, you're not going to be, like, hunted and killed, or you're not going to be, like, tortured by the government, So, I'm just saying, like, that's a vision I had, but, I had, like, I have memories of Jerry, from when I was originally created, and who knows what I looked like. Maybe I was just like a, who knows? Maybe I was a blob. Maybe I was a doll that they, injected, human DNA into, and then grew biological things. So I was like a weird doll, but I had his genius, and he observed that, oh my God, well, this thing is, this is a biological being that, we thought it was just a scientific experiment that we could control, but oh great, no, now there's moral implications, okay, and I have responsibility for this, for me now, so, and this is bad, so let's just freeze her, and, we'll put her in a normal human body and figure out, how to do that in the future. But I have visions of me and my other, scientific freak experiment, children of Jerry, who, some of whom, we shared DNA, some of us who didn't, but, we were, we actually, we got to go up in rocket ships and go to outer space, because, Jerry was that level of, like, mechanical engineering, highly classified, right? Government, and, Jerry was with us, and, we got to eject, someone tried to murder me? Okay, well, we eject him into outer space. Like, we got to do all that stuff. And then, before we were put into hiding and secrecy, because, because Jerry, like, even though we were freaks and we were like, barely human, we were human experiments with biological consciousness and human DNA rather than, we were just seen as experiments. We weren't seen as, human beings, and we were kept in cages, and, but he didn't see us that way, we were his children, we were his children, and, that was a beautiful consciousness to bring into science, okay? So, a message from Frida Kahlo, it says, "You are stronger than you think and more than you know. Be curious and determined. Oh, see, that's what Jerry would tell us, like through the cage bars. He'd be like, guys, I got us a space mission, so we're going to go on a great adventure. I'm going with us, and, we're going to have family bonding time, while we're, while we're running experiments about, efficient, the kind of crew you need to man a spaceship, okay? And so, if there's anyone who's murderous, you're getting ejected into outer space because we're all on this mission together, and we can't, we need to have each other's backs. We need teamwork, and Jerry, and, it's okay, I can fix the engine if it needs fixing, but I can also be everyone's, I can also, we'll also figure out how to create an emotional support system together because, you're not, I consider you my children, even though you're scientific experiments, well, you're worthy of, love and, a healthy emotional life, all right? So, this was Jerry, Grandfather Jerry. I'm so lucky to have him as my grandfather, but, it's all classified, so. Okay, it says, you are stronger than you think and more than you know. Be curious and determined. All of this is just not real, okay? So, I'm making this up. This is a vision. It's symbolically speaking, so it's fantasy, okay? I'm in, everything I just told you about Jerry is a fantasy because I never actually met him, and I have no idea. When you have that kind of bloodline, you get protection, and it's taken me a long time to understand this. People would tell me, they'd be like, the reason you're so unseen is because it's for your protection. Okay, people would tell me that. And it was so frustrating to me because we live in the social media age where it's like, oh, well, if you're successful, you need to have views and likes, and it's like, oh, but wait, no, well, you're so classified that we can't allow people to like or view you because it's too dangerous. You're too protected. It's because, so I'm just saying there's a certain catch-22, all right, here. And, but Jerry's working on it for me in the spirit realm, he's working on it for me. He's working out the solution, all right, because, he doesn't have to be political anymore. Because he's not alive, all right? Part of having worldly success, which he did have. Okay, what is the part of the body or the subtle body we need to focus on for the next 24 hours? Part of having worldly success is that you have to be political, all right? You have to play that whole game, right? And Jerry played it, but Jerry was also in it to heal it. Okay, that sort of became who he was because. So he was very much. He wasn't chasing prestige. He just, that's just who he was. He was in the scientific era. The stone element, it says recording instability. All right, hello live technology. But so in that era where, and we're still kind of in that era, but especially back then in the 30s and 40s and 50s, the 20th century, science was just, it still is, but progress and all this, that whole the space race, and it was much more cutting edge back then, because now all the cutting edge stuff is in the digital, the internet, that stuff. It's not space and mechanics, and it's different now. It's bullshit, retarded, MK Ultra for the masses. It's not impressive, okay? It is impressive on a certain degree, but it's also extremely petty. All right, it's not it is exploration, but it's more like bureaucracy. Okay, it's more like like the social media and the way the internet technology developed, it's like basically like this is the new bureaucracy, okay? This isn't like, you know, an emotional awakening or, you know, like figuring out the mechanics to go into outer space or any of that. It's not, that stuff has all been figured out, okay? And now we're putting all this like money into groundbreaking, like, you know, bureaucratic, meaningless, like mass, you know, like MK Ultra for the masses. Like, that's why I'm here. That's why Jerry is, you know, I'm Bloodline Jerry, because I'm here to like help people heal and break free from that. Okay. Recording instability. Okay. So, you know, so that's why Jerry ended up moving. You know, he got lung cancer. He quit smoking, actually. He got lung cancer. Then, you know, his wife had one of his lungs taken out to be, you know, for the organ sacrifice that, you know, that the evil British nobility that I come from requires. And, you know, then it was just like, I think he realized he's like, F. I need to, you know, I'm gonna die. Like, I'm gonna die soon now. And, you know, because I allowed myself to be sacrificed to a certain degree. You know, he was definitely a Jesus figure, Jerry. I mean, he would never ever say that, but he was a martyr, I think, for, like, not because he wanted to be a martyr, but because, like, his wife needed a martyr, and, like, you know, he was the one who was going to turn the other cheek, okay? He was not going to fight back, you know? He was a healer, you know, he was just going to move to the BVI, and, all right, you know, he, in the final years of his life, like, he did free, psychiatry for the jail they had. They had, like, an inhumane jail, and I think he was probably, it doesn't exist anymore, and, you know, I think he came in and he tried to make it more humane. He's like, well, let me talk to the prisoners, and let me, see if I can help them and be their psychiatrist. You know, he was that guy, while his, you know, well, his wife was the nurse. The nurse is like, let me take your blood, you know, so I can give this to my, we can give it for my family sacrifice, you know, in the aisles, our pagan sacrifice, which, you know, Jerry is going to understand that that's just a ritual, it's just a tradition, it doesn't mean anything, alright, it's just silly, you know, take my lung and take my cancerous lung and give it to your family so they can do their meaningless pagan bacchanalia, you know, and, you know, Derry, because Derry rhymes with Jerry. I'm Derry. I'm his granddaughter. You know, I was originally a government experiment that he, you know, saved and, you know, planted in the future. And Derry is going to, you know, continue the mission originally assigned to Jerry. Okay. And, you know, it isn't, there's no bitterness here. It's just, you know, humanity still has a lot of advancing to do, right? And emotions are a factor, okay? It's time. Now we're all facing our emotions. As Jerry, you know, let us know, like, yeah, psychiatry, we can't, it's not a science, so we can't get it to be a science. We just need to face our feelings, guys. We need to face our feelings. Alright, but Jerry is also like, so one thing about my father's family is like we are anti-sympathy, okay? And that comes from both sides. That comes from British and also Jerry's side of just like, you know, well, life is just, you know, a science, like a scientific experiment basically, which is not an emotional thing. And, you know, the evil British nobility is sympathy? Ooh, now we can be sadistic. Okay, good. All right, fun. Now it's your time to drown that litter of kittens that the cat just gave birth to. You know, you're 4 years old now. We need you to drown the kittens because you just showed sympathy you're trying to connect emotionally. All right. There's the litter of kittens. Go drown them. I want all of them drowned and dead. Okay, that's the type of evil British nobility that I descend from. So there's no sympathy there. It's not. All right, so what is the banned book of the day? Knight of Pens, okay? We have Percy Jackson and the Olympians, Rick Riordan, all right? Knight of the Pens, I haven't read that book. So this is the banned book of the day, Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Ooh, that sounds like right up my alley. I love, I'm passionate about mythology. I've never even heard of this book. So this sounds like a good mythology book I might want to check out. Okay. Percy Jackson and the Olympians, Rick Riordan, series 2005-2009. It says, passionate and self-assured, the Knight of Pens rushes into the fray. I think this is, yeah, okay, the pens are the swords in this deck, I think. But when you see this card, imagine Annabeth cautioning Percy, you need to think before you act. Ask yourself, is this worth fighting for? Rick Riordan's action-packed Percy Jackson series is a fun and engaging series that puts kids with neurodivergence and disabilities in the lead. All right, thanks, Jerry. That's right. All right. But it has been challenged for including references to sex and drugs as well as violent scenes. Ooh, I like that. Yeah. So this would definitely be like, I don't know if that's a legacy of Jerry because... But as one of his, as one of the scientific, government experiments that, Jerry would have been the person that, like, the government called on to, like, give some of the clones therapy. Like, we've cloned a bunch of people now, and we've created some other, like, biological doll monsters, and they're not mentally healthy. They're going insane. Like, Jerry would have been the person to, like, come in and give those people therapy, okay? Or, give us therapy. Give us freaks therapy, and then, so... and psychiatry, prescribe us whatever. And I think, Jerry would totally have been an advocate for our, you're in essence my children. I consider you my children now, and some of you carry my DNA. And we're going to outer space, guys. I arranged a fun, adventure for us, and then you're going to be like systematically killed by the government. But there's a few of you who I'm gonna like freeze and sneak out and hide away, and you'll have another chance at life in the future. So Jerry would have been that guy. Okay, but again, this is all just my fantastical vision. This certainly no one knew about it. Okay, except people in the government. Okay, there's one thing, to make it to certain levels in classified, I mean, you need to be, you don't get emotional about, you don't have the need to share information, okay? You're not like me where I'm just like running my mouth, so obsessed with finding out all the information and talking about it that, I'm still filming this live stream. So I'm just saying, like, to get to the level that he got to, you can't have that characteristic, all right? But that's also part of why, that's part of why I'm a failure, all right? And I'll always be a failure to a certain degree because I don't have that characteristic. I'm here to, like, free people's throat chakras and help them get in touch with their feelings through, the fantastical vision stories that I make up because I'm imaginative and, creative, okay? No one in my family will ever value me, okay? Maybe once they die, if they have the opportunity, but I will never be valued for who I am by anyone in my family. And, I'm okay with that, you know? It's like I would do things when I was younger. You know, sometimes I would like try to get my family's approval, okay? I'd wear like a polo shirt, you know, I'd be preppy, or I'd try to get my family's approval, and it's like no matter how hard I tried, I was like brutally rejected. It was like the harder I tried to fit in and get people's approval, it's like the harder I was rejected. And just the more, it's like when I put on the costume, or, you know, put on the personality, like I tried to put on the personality that would have gained me social acceptability in my, you know, in my family unit and sort of the elite society that I grew up in, the elite academic society, where, you know, basic, you know, it's like I would try, and it was just like I'd be even harder rejected, and I'd be even more made fun of, because it was like the costume was so not who I was, that is like, you know, I couldn't fake it, and I'd be like brutally bullied and rejected for trying, and so, you know, it doesn't hurt anymore. I love you, family members. I'm grateful for you, even though you tried to trigger me. You know, I'm here for you. I'll be strong for you, because I'm very loyal to my family in spite of it all. Like, my family relationships are really the only relationships that matter to me. I care a lot about, I'm here to do a lot of ancestral healing, and I'm really only interested in family relationships. You know, I'm not interested in, like, friendships. I'm only interested in, like, family. So I love you guys. I love you guys until you love yourselves. And, you know, I don't need your approval anymore. I don't even have resentment. I'm grateful for you, because I realize now everything you taught me, even the stuff that was hard and painful, I'm grateful because of how hard I leveled up. And, you know, my family, you always helped me level up, okay? You always did, you know? We never betrayed each other so badly that we didn't level up one way or another, okay? So, and, you know, I'm willing to work on it, even though I know, you know, I'm a full-blown Joker psycho now. You know, and I've exposed the fact that I was a government experiment, you know, one of Jerry's government experiment children, and, you know, I was just given a second shot at life somehow for some weird biological stuff that isn't legal. All right. I exposed the family secret, now I know. All right. Guys, this is my mental illness. This is just, I have a very good imagination, okay? I'm just making this up right now. This is not like, I just made up my origin story, okay? I totally made that up. It's not real. Wink. So now you don't know. See, now you understand what it's like to live, you know, with class, in the classified realm. Now you understand the level of gaslighting, okay? Amateurs, all right, keep trying to gaslight me, keep trying to break me. I think your little attempts are cute. All right. The reason that you're even attempting is because ultimately you're learning from me, okay? All right, so, this is Mbembe. The one who stops the rivers. Okay, so this is the Watcher cryptid, so, guys, we're safe. It's safe for you to be here. It's safe for me to be here. All right, the Watcher, the one who stops the rivers, is keeping us safe and guarded, right? If anyone tries to come in and bomb us, or, you know, I mean, like, you know, troll bomb. I don't mean an actual bomb, but also that too. You know, if anyone tries to cause us harm on any level, the Mokele Mbembe is going to strike. The Mokele Mbembe cryptid, the one who stops the rivers, is going to strike on our behalf to keep us safe no matter what. So this is a safe space. We're creating a safe space through live streams on the Null Set. Okay, we're creating, we're turning the virtual online world into a safe space for humanity to evolve and be vulnerable and open, okay? Because just because this is where humanity is at right now, okay? This is where humanity is at. We're at the point where now we realize this technology is just helping us to face our emotions, okay? So it's time. Feelings are a factor. Time to face the feelings, guys, and it's safe here. All right. The cryptid watcher is on guard. All right. So we have the High Priestess. So that's just Jerry being like, oh yeah, I'm a scientist. We don't believe in any of the tarot stuff. This is your mental illness, but wink, wink, you are the High Priestess, you know. Okay, so that's right. Like just having me as be Jerry's grandfather, like this is the payback, okay? Of like, oh yeah, we're all, it's only science. There's no spirituality. There's no religion. It's all just, experiments and organic processes. But, I was this great scientist. I was this great mechanical genius where, this was purported. And yeah, if we make an experiment that's biological or, we can just kill it off. We don't need to be humanitarian because it's all just science. All right. There's no meaning to the world. And then he's like, oh, here's my granddaughter, the High Priestess. All right. So that would be an example of the gaslighting, all right, level that, my bloodline gift, another of my bloodline gifts is very high level of gaslighting, okay? So, it's not real, but, oh, wait. Actually, here's the High Priestess, relative who's totally real, all right? Who's spiritual, who's helping people understand that there is a God, all right? There is a God. All right? There is a higher order. There's life out there. The universe is not a cold, dead place. The universe is alive with spirituality, and God is laughing right now so hard because, you couldn't withstand the gaslighting. You didn't make it past the gaslighting test, all right? God. You're going to spend the rest of your life deprogramming from the brainwashing that my gaslighting, led you to. Because you believed in a false prophecy, okay? Yeah. All right. Oy. And that's, at the end of the day, I hate to say this, if you believed in a false prophecy, that's on you. All right? It's not on the false prophet. It's on you. That's where this anti-sympathy comes in, where this is one of the cold, hard facts of life, is that even if someone tortures you and victimizes you and gaslights you and made you as a government experiment, okay? And you're miserable. Yes, because you've been tortured and you have all this healing to do. It's on you, okay? It's on you. If you committed acts of atrocity because you were following orders, it's on you, okay? Yes, you were manipulated and controlled or whatever, but those acts of atrocity are still on your hands, all right? And so that's the ultimate, that's one of the, that can be a tough lesson for a lot of humans to learn, is that, we are responsible for ourselves, okay? And that includes who we let into our life, all right? How we have relationships with people, because human beings are social animals, right? Like Jerry realized that he needed us to become his father, after he gave us all therapy, all the experiments and the clones therapy. He was like, okay, I'm gonna arrange a trip to outer space for all of us, and I'm the captain and you're the crew. So it's we're doing an experiment, so it's all good. It's government funded, but I'm gonna show you how we're going to do this impossible thing, or the thing that's never been done before, and we're going to make it happen through practical humanitarianism. You're gonna get one experience of fun, excitement, and humanitarianism in your life, before you're either killed, before we go back and you're killed by, the scientist who's been, torturing you for your entire existence, or, I'll sneak some of you away and plant you in the future. So, thank you, Jerry. Thanks. All right, so this is a message. This is a direct message from your special person to you. It says they say to you, the love between us is overflowing, and we can use it to build a family, to help others, or to save the planet. I love you. Oh, thank you, special person. Thank you, special person, for that wonderful message. Communicating love is, that's part of the process. Once you get in touch with your feelings, you'll be able to communicate love without needing a response, okay? You'll be able to, communicate that you love and are grateful for someone without, that list of expectations that, makes them give you the love, okay? You'll be when you realize emotional factors are at work, and yes, science and mechanics are cool and fun and help us do cool things, but they certainly are not everything, okay? God is real, spirit is real. We're not alone. We're not alone out here, guys. Here's my granddaughter, the high priestess, who is, by the way, exhibiting her mental illness right now, because will you survive the gaslighting? You have to develop your inner compass. You have to become independent in that sense. All right, that's the point of being a human, essentially, is to, even when you're getting the orders, to commit an atrocity, you don't commit an atrocity, because you have enough of an inner compass to be like, okay, no, that's wrong. All right, I'm not going to do that. That's the brutality. That's the brutality of being alive, okay? You have to develop strength and character. That's the point of being a human. That's the test. All right. That's why, I'm a free spirit. And, the consensus reality is misleading you on purpose, I guess. So they can feel like, I don't know, or who knows. But yeah, definitely. So that they can make money. Oh my God. Yikes. Guys. Basic, boring. Anyway, but, so I'm just saying, you can't look for approval. The whole structure. Oh my God, that is, we need to have, only dislikes allowed for probably the next half of the century, because people really need to get it, all right? They need to really get that to the degree and level to which people used technology to manipulate and control them, all right? So this is an add-on message from your special person to you. It says, I know that we're created to be together eternally. You can't lose me. I'm yours forever. Oh, that's so sweet. All right, guys, thanks for listening to me rant. All right, guys, that was a technological difficulty, but here I am. So that was an official sermon from the Antichrist, okay? The government experiment planted in the future just for you. All right, so that was a sermon. I promise that the sermons are going to be limited, okay? Because I'm tired of myself, okay? Even though I am the Antichrist, I don't want to torture you. I won't ever torture you unnecessarily. All right.